بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن سهلا إذا شئت. آمين. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So last week, or just earlier this week, I guess, alhamdulillah, we were able to finish Surah al-Infitar, and we started the beginning of Mutaffifin. We were at, we kind of discussed the Fala Uqsimu bil Khunnas, I think, and then, or that was part of the review, and sorry. So we discussed Inna al-Abrar lafi na'im, Surah al-Infitar, and ayah number 13, Inna al-Abrar lafi na'im wa Inna al-Fujjara lafi jahim. So Allah Ta'ala discusses the chaos that's going to ensue on the Day of Judgment, and then He discusses that there are the Kiram and Katibin, those angels that are on the shoulders of that are recording the deeds of the people, and they are protecting them and they are writing them down. يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. They know all that which the people do. إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ وَإِنَّ الْفُجَّارَ لَفِي جَحِيمٍ. And then Allah Ta'ala says that the abrar, the righteous individuals, are immersed in na'im, in pleasure and virtue, and وَإِنَّ الْفُجَّارَ لَفِي جَحِيمٍ, that these fujjar, these people of transgression, are in the jahim, the hellfire. يَصْلَوْنَهَا يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. They will enter it on the Day of Judgment. وَمَا هُمْ عَنْهَا بِغَائِبِينَ. And they are not absent from it. They will not be turned away from it for any moment. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينِ ثُمَّ مَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا يَوْمُ الدِّينِ. And what will make you realize what is the Day of Judgment? Again, what will make you realize what is the Day of Judgment? The repetition here being for a sort of tahweel, as I said, that it's the repetition is used to show the fright of the magnitude of that day. يَوْمَ لَا تَمْلِكُ نَفْسٌ لِنَفْسٍ شَيْئًا. On the day in which no individual will hold any power or have any ability to help any other individual, not in the slightest degree. وَالْأَمْرُ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلَّهِ. And the matter, the command, the judgment on that day is for Allah Ta'ala alone. Interesting here, we see that وَالْأَمْرُ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلَّهِ. We had discussed the principle of تَقْدِيمُ مَا حَقَّهُ تَأْخِيرُ يُفِيدُ الْحَصْرِ, that when you bring something forward in the sentence, even though it should be at a later part of the sentence, it gives yufid al-hasr, it gives the meaning of exclusivity. So of course, al-amru yawma idhin lillah, that Allah Ta'ala has complete control in everything and at all times, of course. But the rhetorical device that's being used here is when you say wal-amru yawma idhin lillah as opposed to wal-amru lillahi yawma idhin, is that on that day, Allah Ta'ala, of course, has full control and full ability, showing that in the dunya, it's possible that an individual has the amr. He has his own ability, he has his own command, he has his own judgment, and which is precisely what the next surah talks about, that wailul lil mutaffifin, that on the Day of Judgment, you have no ability, you have no command, you have no authority. But in the world that you live in, you do have authority. So you have to make sure that your a'mal are righteous and you're avoiding sins. And then, how does this connect? As I was saying, is that people end up, one of the very common sins that people end up being involved in is business transactions. That وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَّفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. So, well, we discuss wailun lil mutaffifin. Wailun is we translate it as woe, but there's a very very negative connotation to this, like almost like a bitsa, where it's like you're calling for a sort of calamity and a difficulty upon the party that you're addressing. Wailun lil mutaffifin, to those people who are involved in tatufif. So tatfif, as we had mentioned, is those individuals who, as Allah Ta'ala also He says that الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ, that these individuals, when they are when they take a measure from people, they take it in full. So when they're the customer, they're making sure they get every single penny, they get their penny's worth. And وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. And when they are the seller and they're the ones who are weighing the items, for example, then what do? They are deficient, and they have a sort of, they diminish the product, that the amount of the product that they have to turn over to the customer. So some of the points that we had mentioned here was uh, الذين إذا اكتالوا على الناس. So على, originally it's really supposed to be الذين إذا اكتالوا من الناس. That it should be من الناس, but the usage of على here shows that تشير إلى الاستعلاء. استعلاء meaning that these people are trying to like really throw themselves on top of the buyer. That as a customer, they're trying to kind of force themselves onto the buyer to try to, maybe even although of course they're trying to get their right, but they're trying to also force things into the deal that really shouldn't be part of the deal. Like, for example, what happens is, like, if we get upset at like a waiter or something, right? What do we do? We're like, if you just throw in a couple of extra drinks, let's get when you brought us our food, it was kind of cold. Could we just get like a free app? Could we get dessert for free? That sometimes happens. So that's something that we definitely should not be involved in. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ. Of course, if they do it from their own side, then that's a gift from them. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ. Yeah, after I'm going. No, no, yeah, you shouldn't be asking for. You could. So there's a fine line between asking for your right, which is, of course, like if they mess up your order, you're like, yo, I didn't. I specifically asked for, don't put like XYZ on top of my sandwich, and they did it. Yeah, go ahead, feel free to do that, because that's what you paid for. But if you're trying to, like, you're trying to like con them out of, trying to like guilt trip them basically into trying to give you free stuff. Those things, yeah, we shouldn't be involved in those things. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, but if it's from their own side, like, a lot of restaurants, like, they'll let you. They'll, from their own side, they'll give you like free stuff just to try to like keep, make sure you come back the next time and all those things. That's completely fine. No, no, that could also have has a place too. The haggling, and in certain parts of the world, or in certain industries, I guess it is like, it's the norm, and because it's the norm, it should be okay. However, in things like in the restaurant thing, where you're just trying to like, can like guilt trip the guy, or in a place that like, you're not gonna go to Walmart and try to bargain, right? Okay, so in those situations, it wouldn't be acceptable. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. And when they're the ones who are the sellers, they diminish in the product that they are giving to the customer. Originally, it's supposed to be وَإِذَا كَالُوا لَهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوا لَهُمْ. That when they are weighing, kale is for volume, wazan is for weight or mass. So the missing lam is showing that there's something missing from this transaction. I think this is probably where we had left off. Maybe we did one more ayah or two. But أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. That do these people really think that they will not be resurrected? لِيَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. On the great day. So يَظُنُّ, it's the ghaib sigha is being used. It's not even addressing them directly. This is for لِزِيَادَةِ التَّشْنِيعِ. To Allah Ta'ala is completely turning away from these individuals. He's not even directly addressing them. These people really think that they will not be resurrected on the lam liyawmin. So this lam is called lamut tawqit, the lam that specifies a time. Yawmin azim. Azam or azim, I think I mentioned this before, maybe in Surah An-Naba, is azim comes from azam, and azam is a bone. So A bone is something that it's hard. If you get hit with a bone, it could possibly cause you some type of injury, whether big or small. So azim is not just something that we should translate as great, but it also has the connotation of something being like tough or hard. Yeah, salam of tawqit, from waqt, like waw qaf ta. So on the scale of taf'il, tawqit. Mm. So اليوم العظيم. Missing lam. Now we had discussed also. I think this is review as well. But the قول Imam Malik لكل شيء وفاء وتطفيف, that every single thing it has a where you could do it in full and you could also be kind of stingy with the action. And then we have given the example that a person, if they're praying salah and they're rushing through it, they're not doing the ruku' properly, they're not doing their sajda, they're just rushing through it like really fast, then that person is doing a sort of tatfif with the rights of Allah Ta'ala that Allah Ta'ala has on him. Similarly, we had discussed especially like in business, of course, as is the context here, that a person, if they have to work a certain set of hours and then they try to clock out early, or they try to have one of their friends clock out for them, that would also be a sort of tatfif as well. I think Ahtam, you had asked a question about like in these IT or any sort of like contract job, that if a person, let's say they finish their work early, should they tell their employer? So I'd asked our Mufti Saab that he's on our HIFS team. He said, yeah, the person should inform the employer that the work is finished. He had also mentioned though, like if a person kind of like they delay in finishing the work, then maybe that could possibly be okay, possibly. Of course, I mean a lot of these things are like case by case. You could play it by ear. They say that the best mufti is the heart. Once the heart is uncomfortable with the situation, then that's that's the fatwa you have to follow. Okay. I think there was one thing that I had skipped. I think Sheikh Sabuni mentions it. He says that he mentions a narration. He says regarding the beginning couple of verses, وَلَا تُطَفِّفُ الْكَيْلَ إِلَّا مُنِعَ النَّبَاتُ وَأُخِذُوا بِالسِّنِينَ. That these people, when they are involved with doing this tatfif, and they're they're lying to their customers pretty much, even though it's like so like it's such a fractional type of stealing that's being done. Except that what's going to happen, that when an economy or when a people are involved in this sort of tatfif, then the risk is pretty much taken away, as well as these people will be involved in drought. So, like we said, this is just the asrar, and these are just the way that Allah Ta'ala deals with people who are involved with sort of. So a person may ask, like, what does that have to do with the other? Well, this is how Allah Ta'ala deals with these things. You could maybe even like, what's the hikmah? What's the reason for this? Like, why? What's the connection between these two? It's possible that the people that are involved with in like shady transactions, then when when there's no food available and people are involved in drought, usually what happens is that economies collapse, or inflation rises. So there is a sort of correlation there between the crime and the punishment. يوم يقوم الناس لرب العالمين. That on the day in which the people will have to stand in front of their Lord. This is Allah Ta'ala describing what this Yawmin Azimin is. What is this great day? That it's the day in which all mankind, all people will have to stand in front of the Lord of Al-Alameen, the worlds. So what this is alluding to is that, the reason people, like, what is this? أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ? What does it have to do with people having a tatfif in their transactions? What does this have to do with the business place? So once a person is involved in something like this, if a person is involved in tatfif, if a person's willing to take just like a fraction of a percent of what they owe the customer off, it's usually because what happens is that a person loses sight of the akhirah, and a person they think that, okay, no one's gonna call me out for this crime. I've been doing this. I did, okay, maybe the first time they're scared to do it, and then a few times after that they gain more confidence, and then it just eventually becomes regular practice. So now this person, what does he end up thinking? He's thinking that I will not be taken to account. I will not be held accountable for this crime that I commit. So Allah Ta'ala is refuting that thought, which will, grows in the mind of this criminal. He says that on the day of judgment, you most surely will be taken to task for this crime that you're committing. And then Allah Ta'ala says, ayah number 7, كلا إن كتاب الفجار لفي سجين. That this kalla is حرف it's a حرف used for ردع را دال عين الردع. It's the part the حرف that's used for something to show like the disapproval, or to show that try to prevent an individual from performing an action, which is of course the thief that's being discussed here, as well as their dhann about not being resurrected, and showing that it is false. So this kalla it is used for showing that this dhann that they have, this thought that they have, that they won't be resurrected. So Allah Ta'ala is saying that most surely that you will be resurrected, and then He gives a description as to how will these criminals be resurrected and what will their qualities be. He says, "Inna kitab al-fujjari lafi sijjin." That Allah Ta'ala says, most surely, the inscribed book of deeds for the wicked is locked up in the inescapable depths of Sijjin. That's okay, that's a mouthful. That the record of these fujjar, of these transgressors, of these criminals, is in the Sijjin. Sijjin, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the word Sijin, a jail. So Sijjin, it's used for, as he says, مأخوذ من السجن وهو الضيق. That it's a very, very narrow, restricted place that a criminal is kept. And ولما كان مصير الفجار إلى جهنم وهي أسفل السافلين وهي تجمع الضيق والسفول. So now when a person is in Jahannam, and on top of that he's in Sijjin, then, and Jahannam of course is in the lowest depths of it, he's in the disgrace that this person has is that they're not only are they in the lowest place that a person could be in, but they're also very, very uncomfortable while they're in this place. أخبر تعالى أنه كتاب مرقوم. Okay, so كلا إن كتاب الفجار لفي سجين. Now, if we compare it actually to the previous surah, Allah Ta'ala talks about the كراما كاتبين يعلمون ما تفعلون. وإن عليكم لحافظين كراما كاتبين يعلمون ما تفعلون. That Allah Ta'ala in Surah Al-Infitar, He's discussing these writers, these angels who write down the deeds of the individuals. Now, the connection between this and the previous surah is that now we know that these noble writers are documenting everything, and of course they're not making mistakes. But on top of that, I think again an IT example is like, you have someone who does the work, and they're I mean, I don't know exactly the lingo that's used for IT folk, but like, they're doing all the work, they're doing all the coding, they're doing everything perfectly correct, perfectly right. But you also, on top of that, you need the backup servers, right? You need people, you need to make sure that you have all the information stored. You need to make sure it's not going to be corrupted. You need to make sure if something happens, then you have something on the backup servers protecting that information at all costs. So now what is Allah Ta'ala saying is that we have these amazing documenters, we have these amazing coders in our analogy, and on top of that, the backup server is in a kitab, inna kitab al-fujjari lafi sijjin. And then Allah Ta'ala continuously describes this kitab and what the sijjin is. He says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا sijjin. He says, and do you realize what sijjin is? And he says, kitabum marqum. So now this is describing the kitab al-fujjar, that this kitab al-fujjar is a ayah number is that? Ayah number 9. That it is in the lowest of the low, in a book wherein, it is the lowest of the low, wherein is a book inscribed with their dreadful end. So this kitab marqum. Marqum means where something is inscribed, and such an inscription that, where is it at? هو كتاب مكتوب كالرقم في الثوب لا ينسى ولا يمحى. That it's such an inscription that is written down. It's like having like what do you call that when you have like a symbol on your thobe, something that's like just been woven in there that you can't take it away. La yunsa wa la yumha, that their deeds are not forgotten because they're written down in this book. Wa la yumha, and they can never be erased. So the analogy this being here is that's being shown here is like, you know, like in a prison, there's a warden who has like the records of all the criminals. So this this Sijin is that place for these individuals in which this is where they're going to be spending their time. And just like how the warden, he has these files of what the crimes these individuals committed, that's what this Kitabul Fujari is. It's like all the documentation of every single crime that was committed by these individuals. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, and Allah Ta'ala says that, woe that day to all of the beliers. Now, what does this have to do with the previous portion? That وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ الَّذِينَ يُكَذِّبُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. Allah Ta'ala describes وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. That Allah Ta'ala says, woe to that day to all these people that belie. What do they belie? الَّذِينَ يُكَذِّبُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ, these people who are belying of the day of judgment. Those who belie the day of judgment. وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. And no one belies it, no one denies it except for إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. Okay, so mu'tad and athim, two very interesting words. Let me just see if I have any. So we see that the asl for all of this is takdeeb, that these people have been reminded over and over again that about the akhirah, about being resurrected, about the day of judgment, about the destruction that will happen on in the earth, in the cosmos, that Allah Ta'ala will cause to happen, and these people still turn away from it. So this is their takdeeb that they're doing. Although they've been reminded multiple times on multiple occasions, they still deny it and they still act as if they're not going to be resurrected and that Allah Ta'ala will not take account for their actions. And we notice that one of the themes is in the Quran is that repetition is done because those concepts are very, very difficult for people to really internalize. So now, for example, if we take let's say, like Ramadan. Ramadan explicitly is only mentioned in the Quran one time, right? It's in the second juz around the half bar mark, or after the first quarter. That Allah Ta'ala says, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. And then he talks about the commandment of people having to fast during the month of Ramadan. Now, this Ramadan is only mentioned once. And interestingly, we see that it's probably something that, mashallah, most of the ummah, even the people that, you know, they don't pray regularly, they don't really care about, or they don't act upon any of the other prohibitions or things that Allah, the Sharia has made permissible, you know, although, you know, they're really, really shaking all those sort of things, but they still end up fasting in the month of Ramadan. And that's something that Allah Ta'ala only mentioned in that particular section or in the second part, only that one time. Whereas something like a concept like taqwa, something like a concept of this we're discussing here, the day of judgment, or something like the qiyamah, especially in jaza and ba'ath and hashr, all these things, Allah Ta'ala continuously repeats and repeats and repeats them. Why? Because, you know, a person, we might have this attitude that, you know, like, okay, let me hear some other stuff, like I've heard this enough. But the reality is that these are the things that we really, really need to sink in. And once these things sink in, then the Sharia will be a lot easier for us to practice upon the Sharia. There's one more thing that I was about to say was, I remember actually, yeah, Mufti Rada al-Haq, when we had visited him, he said that, you know, we might have the attitude that, like, you know, why are people like leaving Deen, or why are people like misunderstanding Deen so much? And he said that the Risala, like most important thing is that there's the oneness of Allah Ta'ala, believing in Him and believing Nabi Sallallahu, the prophethood, the finality of the prophethood of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He's like, these are the most fundamental concepts of our deen. And this is something that Allah Ta'ala talks about the most, like without question, right? Like, what other topic is there other than talking about the Tawheed that is so emphasized in our religion? Like, that's the most emphasized thing. And the reason he said that the reason that it's being repeated so much is because it is something difficult to understand for a lot of people. Alhamdulillah, for us, you know, born Muslims, we were able to study deen, to to whatever degree we're able to. And this is like something that Allah Ta'ala has, almost made like a sort of daruri knowledge for us, something that's like, just like first principles almost. Like it's just so, it seems so, so basic to us that we can't understand why people don't believe in this, right? So the Mufti Sabi made a very, very good point. He said that the fact that Allah Ta'ala is repeating it so much shows that, for maybe for a non-Muslim, someone who's comes from like a complete on the complete opposite spectrum of this stuff, it's such a very difficult concept to grasp. Just the oneness of God. I don't know where that came from. Um, Mu'tadin athim. So mu'tadin coming from the verb of i'tada, i'tadi, root letters ayn dal ya. It means to violate someone else's right. وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ. That, and the only person that belies this is the one who violates others' rights. So mu'tad, someone who violates someone's rights, someone who crosses the limits. And why did they do this? Why did they do this? Again, just because they are losing sight of the excuse me. They're losing sight of the akhirah. The reason a person loses, that they don't care about the bounds that Allah Ta'ala has set, is because they're it's not even like a focus in their mind anymore. They don't even care about it. And as for athim, mu'tad and athim comes from ithim, which as many of us know is sin. And there's a lot of different words used in the Quran for sin, but we could just loosely translate it as sin. But on top of that, this athim is someone who, not only is he doing bad things, not only is he violating the rights of other peoples, on top of that, it also keeps him from doing good things. As this athim is someone who he's like so far gone that it's not, some people, although they might be involved in certain sins, at least they're doing certain good deeds. This guy, this Mu'tad and Athim, he's not like that at all. He's, any chance he gets to, cross someone over, any chance he gets to violate someone else's right for his own personal gain, he'll do it. And on top of that, he won't even feel bad about it. He won't even try to make up for it. There's not even like an inkling of an inclination to try to do good for someone. So this Mu'tad plus Athim, it's just the worst of the worst. Ithm, as the Ahlul Lugha say, it's a quality of the heart. So this is a guy that, like we said, doesn't even want to. He doesn't even have the tiniest inclination of doing good. إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين. And when our verses are recited to him, إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا, so this is فعل مجهول, تتلى آياتنا عليه, when our verses are recited upon him. قال, what does he say? أساطير الأولين. What is his response to hearing the revelation of Allah Ta'ala? He says that this is أساطير الأولين. This is the tales of the ancient. So أساطير is like, those I think like a good example I remember when I was growing up was in my school we used to all read the Percy Jackson series about some like Greek mythology stuff and like in like a modern age, some kid who's like all that. Okay, if you guys are familiar with it, great. But so that's like Greek myth and all these things. Those would be something that's considered asatir. All these things that are like fable, they're mythology. There's just like legends and stories of mainly for like entertainment. Al-awwaleen is talking about the earlier generation. So asatir al-awwaleen, the stories of like how does he translate it? This is number 13. They're tales of the ancients. Okay, so number 13. So tutla has two different masters. It's used for, the verb is used for two different things also. It's tala yatlu. Talwun is used for something to follow, to succeed something, or it could also be tala yatlu tilawa, as is used here, that the tilawa of the ayat, that these verses are being recited upon this individual. And then again we have ayah number 14, كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. That's this kalla, again used for rada', and Sheikh Sabuni has something that's very, very nice on this. He says, كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون أي ليرتدع هذا الفاجر عن ذلك القول الباطل. That this is to prevent the people from having this assumption, from saying something like this fajr says here, that he says that this revelation is, what is it? It's just asatir al-awwaleen. It's just the tales of our forefathers. فليس القرآن أساطير الأولين. The Quran is most certainly not just fables and tradition that's been passed down from from people from earlier generations. بل غطى على قلوبهم ما كسبوا من الذنوب. That كلا بل ران على قلوبهم, that their hearts, there's a rust that has come over their hearts. ران على قلوبهم, that their hearts have been rusted, they've become like covered, they become covered up. ما كانوا يكسبون, due to the evil that they have earned, due to all these disgusting qualities that we've been discussing in these past few ayahs. For this reason, their hearts have become rusted. So he says, where is it? بل غطى على قلوبهم ما كسبوا من الذنوب, that their hearts have become rusted due to their sins that they've acquired. فطمس بصائرهم فصاروا لا يعرفون الرشد من الغي. So it's like they become blind. Their hearts have become blind and they're not able to recognize, they're not able to differentiate between guidance and misguidance. قال المفسرون, and the scholars say that الران هو الذنب على الذنب حتى يسود القلب. That ran, it's, what is it? It's sinning, it's committing a sin after sin after sin until what happens? The heart becomes black. And this is referring to the ahadith, as I mentioned in the hashiyah, that في الحديث إن العبد إذا أخطأ خطيئة نكتت في قلبه نكتة سوداء. That when a individual, when a slave, he commits a sin, when he makes a mistake, there's a black dot that has been placed on his heart. فإذا هو نزع واستغفر الله وتاب سقل قلبه. And then when he realizes his mistake and he turns to Allah Ta'ala and he asks Allah Ta'ala for his forgiveness, سقل قلبه, it's his heart is polished from that darkness. There's also that very famous ahadith I'm sure you're all familiar with about the كل بني آدم خطاؤون وخير الخطائين توابون, that every single human being is a sinner, and the best sinners are those who repent and turn back to Allah Ta'ala. So once a person, they seek wastaghfirullah wa tab, wastaghfirullah wa taba, suqila qalbuhu, once a person, they ask for forgiveness from Allah Ta'ala and they turn to him, then his heart is polished from that black spot. then عاد زيد فيها حتى تعلو على قلبه. And if he doesn't do this, he doesn't seek the forgiveness of Allah Ta'ala, what happens? These black dots, they continue to add up and they continue to be added and added until what happens? They overtake his heart and his entire heart has now become black. وهو الران الذي ذكر الله في كتابه, and that's the ran that's being referred to here. كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون, as narrated in the hadith in Tirmidhi Sharif. Okay. May Allah Ta'ala protect us all. كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون. So there's a couple of discussions that come up here, which is why I was kind of rushing because we only have about 20 minutes. Okay, inshallah. So, what does he say? كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون. No, indeed, the day of judgment is true. Most surely on that day they shall be veiled from seeing their Lord. إنهم عن ربهم, from their Lord, يومئذ لمحجوبون. On that day there's going to be hijab between them, that they will be veiled from seeing their Lord. So now, a couple of things to say. Okay, I forgot what I wrote a note about. I'm not sure exactly what I intended by that, but let's just skip that. So, okay. So, كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون. عن ربهم, like we said, that same قاعدة I believe I mentioned earlier. Where was it? والأمر يومئذ لا, that this تقديم ما حقه تأخير يفيد الحصر, that these people كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون, they'll be veiled from seeing their Lord. Meaning what? If they're veiled from seeing their Lord, then they're going to be staring and they're going to be facing something else. They'll be forced to look at something else. And what is that? As we had discussed in the previous ayah, وَمَا هُمْ عَنْهَا بِغَائِبِينَ, that they are not going to be absent, they're not going to be protected, they're not going to be away from the fire of Jahannam at all. So that's one correlation between this verse in this surah and the previous surah. Additionally, like I had sent for the last class, those pictures of the tahawiyah regarding the mas'ala of ru'yatullah. So ru'yatullah is a contentious issue with regards to, what page was it on? Um, what was it? Well, it was a mas'ala in which the Ahl Sunnah and the Mu'tazila differed on. And is there contention about it today? I'm not sure. I think maybe possibly the Salafis might have a sort of view on this, maybe, but I'm not exactly sure. But however, the Mu'tazila had a denied this possibility of seeing Allah Ta'ala. So I had sent the pictures. I don't want to read those out, especially like I mean they're in English, so you guys can read it by yourselves, inshallah. However, what I did want to read out was this book, Dawul Ma'ali, the Sharah an Badal Amali, regarding this masala and the different proofs as to why we, as Sunni Muslims, believe that the believers on the Day of Judgment will be able to see Allah Ta'ala. So he says, يراه المؤمنون بغير كيف وإدراك وضرب من مثال. That الضمير البارز في يراه يرجع إلى الله سبحانه الدال عليه لفظ مستغن إلهي. Okay, so he gives like a nahu breakdown first. يراه المؤمنون الأبرار دون الكفار. That the believers will be able to see Allah Ta'ala on their judgment, and the disbelievers will not. فإنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون. That these people on that day, as we had just read in this ayah, that they will be veiled from seeing Allah Ta'ala. رؤية بغير كيفية ولا إدراك إحاطة. That this seeing, of course, does not mean that there's a specific quality that now Allah Ta'ala has of having a body or something like that. So that's of course not the case, that Allah Ta'ala does not have a body. And but so the whole issue, what it pretty much boils down to, is that how is it possible that you're able to see Allah Ta'ala, because then that would necessitate that he has a body and he has a side, or he has a jiha, as is said. So what we're saying is that although it's impossible for Allah Ta'ala to have a body, and because it's not possible for him to have a side or any physical description, correct? But that doesn't mean that we throw out like the baby with the bathwater. It doesn't mean that we completely deny that this concept of ru'yatullah as a whole. Rather, we affirm that there's such a thing as ru'yatullah, that of seeing Allah Ta'ala. It's just we do not know the kayfiyah of it, as being said here, that we just don't know the exact details. However, because Allah Ta'ala is saying that this is going to happen, then we must believe in it. فلا ينافي قوله تعالى لا تدركه الأبصار ولا that it doesn't contradict the ayah ولا تدركه الأبصار, because Allah Ta'ala says قال تعالى وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة. That faces on that day will be radiant because they will be إلى ربها ناظرة, they will be looking towards their Lord. وقال عليه السلام سترون ربكم كما ترون القمر ليلة البدر. You will be able to see your Lord just like how you see the moon when it is full on the 13th, 14th, 15th nights of the lunar month. Just like how the moon is completely full in the sky, that in that manner you will be able to see your Lord. لا تضامون, that you will not be fighting, or وفي رواية لا تضارون, that you won't be struggling to see him. والمعنى لا تشكون في رؤيته كما لا تشكون في رؤية القمر حال البدر. So just like how a person, if there's a full moon, it's not, and even though there might be like a million people standing in one place, it's not like someone's struggling. It has to people have to push others just to be able to see the moon, but rather they're able to see it very clearly. وقال تعالى للذين أحسنوا الحسنى وزيادة. Allah Ta'ala says that for the people that enter Jannah, there is للذين أحسنوا, for the people that do good and they're able to enter Jannah, they're able to enter Jannah, they have al-husna, which is referring to Jannah itself. They will be rewarded with paradise, wa ziyada, and something extra. Now what is this extra? وفسر النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم الحسنى بالجنة والزيادة بالرؤية. The Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم says in a narration that's brought by Tabari and Ibn Kathir, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he gives the tafsir actually of this ayah. He says that al-husna is Jannah, and the ziyada bir-ru'ya, that this ziyada is the ru'ya of being able to see Allah Ta'ala. رزقنا الله هذه النعمة. May Allah Ta'ala grant us this huge blessing. Ameen. Okay. Then he gives some more narrations, and ثم وقوع الرؤيا لمؤمني هذه الأمة بإجماع أهل السنة وفي الأمم السابق. So this is ijma' amongst the Ahl Sunnah, that this is something that will occur for the believers on the Day of Judgment. And then, subhanAllah, he gives a lot more details and some discussions that normally a person would definitely just not think of on their own. But mashallah, our ulama have really discussed everything down to like the nitty gritty details as well. SubhanAllah. And some back and forth with the deviant sects and their proofs and their rebuttals to their proofs and whatnot. That was that thing. And one last thing is, where is it at? Okay, so sorry, just one sec. كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون أي ليرتدع هؤلاء المكذبون عن غيهم وضلالهم فيهم في الآخرة محجوبون عن رؤية المولى جل وعلا. That this كلا again is used for حرف الردع, is to prevent people from prevent the مكذبون from doing their takdhib, from not being able to distinguish between the right and the wrong, and they will be mahjub from seeing their Lord Allah Ta'ala فلا يرونه, and they will not be able to see him. قال الشافعي, so Imam Shafi'i says وفي هذه الآية دليل على أن المؤمنون يرونه عز وجل. وقال مالك لما حجب أعداءه لم يروه تجلى لأوليائه حتى رأوه. Imam Malik says that once these individuals, these a'da of Allah Ta'ala, these disbelievers and these enemies of Allah Ta'ala, as he says, once they're not able to see him, then Allah Ta'ala will allow the believers to be able to see him. And lastly, the last thing I just wanted to mention, and then we could end off here, inshallah, is Mufti Shafi, he adds a very beautiful comment, and he says that according to some of the predecessors, this verse is a proof that man, by virtue of his innate nature, is forced to love Allah Ta'ala. Therefore, now what's the proof for this? Therefore, all disbelievers in the world, no matter how deeply they are steeped in their form of disbelief or hold false beliefs regarding the supreme being and attributes of Allah Ta'ala, there is a common denominator in their hearts. It's that they love, respect, and honor Allah Ta'ala. So now when I read this, I was just like, what is he talking about? They worship him according to their belief systems in quest of him and his pleasure. Because they have taken the wrong road, they are unable to reach their destination, but they are nonetheless in search of the same destination of truth. So I mean, that makes sense that a person, of course, there's like two things that people really want. It's truth and it's happiness, right? That's like the main driving forces of like the Western culture. It's that people just want to be happy and people just want truth. And then he also adds that if they did not have the desire to see their Lord, it would not have been said in their punishment that they will remain deprived of seeing Allah Ta'ala. That if it wasn't part of the innate nature of every single human being, no matter how much a person may hate Allah Ta'ala, na'udhu billah, no matter how much a person may maybe a hardcore atheist or something, then how it is possible that this would even be a punishment? Like this is saying that عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون, that they'll be veiled, that they won't be able to see Allah Ta'ala. This is a form of punishment. And if a person hates Allah Ta'ala, na'udhu billah, and then this would not be a punishment that applies to them. And of course that can't be the case. Where was I? If they did not have the desire to see their Lord, it would not have been said in their punishment that they will remain deprived of seeing Allah Ta'ala, because if a person is not desirous, rather he is hateful of Allah Ta'ala, of seeing him, then it would not be a punishment for him. Okay, so actually I did prepare one goal, just two more ayahs, inshallah. ثُمَّ إِنَّهُمْ لَصَالُو الْجَحِيمِ, that then indeed they shall enter into the hellfire. Ayah number 16, that then most surely they shall roast in the hellfire. Salu could be either they enter it or they burn in it, so they'll enter into the fire or they'll roast in the hellfire. ثم يقال هذا الذي كنتم به تكذبون, then it will be said to them, this is that which you used to belie. This is that thing that you used to deny. This hellfire is, and jaza and all those things that go along with it, of course, of being resurrected, of being judged for your deeds. This is what you used to belie. What's interesting here is that it's yuqalu, is fi'il majhul, and the reason this is being said in this way is because that Allah Ta'ala previously he had already said that He's veiled away from them, and now what's happening, He's not even directly addressing them as well. So as Imam Sheikh Sabuni says that ثم يقال هذا الذي كنتم به تكذبون, ثم تقول لهم خزنة جهنم, that guardians and the gatekeepers of Jahannam are the ones that are actually going to be see this ala wajh, they're going to be the ones saying this, sorry, ala wajh taqri' wa tawbih, in a very disdainful and looking down upon these people of Jahannam. هذا العذاب الذي كنتم تكذبون به في الدنيا. That this is the punishment that they used to deny and belie while you were living in the world. And then, inshallah, what we'll cover Monday is the rest of the surah regarding the. So we just discussed all the qualities and the description of the Fujar and the Jahim and the Sijjin. Inshallah, from next time we can discuss the sifat and the qualities of the Abrar Lafi Illiyin, when they are in the they're in Jannah and they're enjoying the ni'mas that Allah Ta'ala blesses them with. May Allah Ta'ala make us from them. Any questions? Gigi.